So it's Ferguson today, and you might be thinking to yourself, well, what is a white guy who doesn't even live in the States doing talking about Ferguson, and what can he possibly have to offer? Well, I would argue this: what I offer is perspective. I'm outside the country, I'm not affected by the same issues that you are. And I believe that lets me see the plan behind what is happening at Ferguson. And it's not racial. Sure, the incident itself might have been racially motivated. I cannot say because I don't know the people involved. But there is no plan for race war. This is not Obama's agenda. Now, when Michael Brown was shot by Darren Wilson, it was a senseless incident, and I'm going to talk about that for a little while, because on ABC News the officer has given an interview and his account of what happens, and by his own account of what happens, I mean, certainly he would be in deep trouble if he was in the UK, and he should be, I would have thought, in deep trouble in the US as well, but he's not. He's let off, no charges. And I can quite see why people are angry about that. But it's not only black people who should be angry, as I will show you in a minute. So, what Wilson actually did was a stop and search when he was going for lunch on his own in a car. Now that is the first problem, because there were two large black guys walking along the middle of the street, and he took it upon himself that he was going to do an arrest. Now, with no backup, nobody with him, two large black guys, I'm going to arrest them because one of them may have been involved, and in fact we know now was involved, in a store robbery. Now, what's wrong with that, to start with, is, yeah, he should have actually had backup with him if he was going to do an arrest. Now, there are times, and any police officer will tell you, there are times when it is better to sit back and to not do things. And this was one of those times. But he decided he was going to go ahead with it, so he ordered them off the road. They wouldn't come off the road. He pulled up, there was an argument, a verbal argument, and Brown slammed the driver's door shut when the officer attempted to exit the vehicle, and obviously at this point the window was open. Now, why did he keep the window open at that point? Why didn't he close it? But Brown kept pushing the door shut and reached his hands into the vehicle through the window to throw the first punch. And they were engaged in a fist fight, and he was scared. Right? Now, Brown was a bit heavier, but they were both the same height. However, Wilson was sitting down. Now, the analogy that Wilson used is he felt like a 5-year-old grappling with Hulk Hogan. Wouldn't it have made sense to disengage then? And here's the next thing. Afraid that the next blow would render him unconscious, Wilson said his training kicked in and overrode his actions. He says he immediately ruled out mace, saying it could have been used to disable Brown, but that Brown could have grabbed it and used it against him as well. Well, I'm sorry, if you take out a firearm, how many police officers have been killed by the suspect grabbing hold of their firearm and turning it against them? The same argument applies. So really it's a temper thing. Get back or I'm going to shoot you. You're too much of a pussy to shoot me. And so he shot him. And I think that that is basically a bit of cowardice on the officer's behalf. I'm in a public facing job. I have to deal with large aggressive black guys every day. I'm not allowed to shoot them. I don't even have mace. I'm not allowed to carry any sort of weapon at all under UK law. And you have to talk to these people. Now, surely his training should have taught him how to deal with large aggressive people. And if it didn't, then it's not just Officer Wilson at fault, it's the training methods of the police force that he is a part of. Now, he then says that that shot didn't stop Brown. He fired more shots from the car. He called for backup, but the call, nobody received it. He claims it's because the radio had been turned from channel 1 to channel 3, but who knows. Wilson then gave chase to Brown, compounding his original error. You've got this aggressive suspect, he is now running away. You felt frightened. Are you? If you really, really felt frightened enough to shoot, are you really going to chase him? I would say not. And I would say this is the second point where he should have sat back and said, right, there's something going on here. I've got the evidence in my car CCTV, if indeed it had CCTV. I'm presuming it did. Whether it was turned on or not, who knows. You know, I mean, this guy's run away, etc., etc. I know who he is. We can get him later. But no, he decided to run after him. And then Brown had had enough, started coming back towards the officer. And then you got the classic, he feared he might be concealing a weapon, although a lot of witness accounts seem to say that Brown was lifting his hands in surrender, and so he shot him dead. And that's basically what happened. Now, this whole incident shouldn't have happened. It should never have happened, for a lot of reasons. But let's forget the incident, because that's not the main problem. The main problem is what happened afterwards. So the incident isn't really an issue at Ferguson. Ferguson is about sending a message. And it's about sending a message to two people, to law enforcement and to the American public. And the message it sends to law enforcement is this: it is okay to shoot unarmed American citizens with no real warning if they disobey your orders. You have nothing to fear. There will be no charges, and this is creating a legal precedent to back up the new powers of the police, which they tried to create in the Bundy incident, if you remember, but that kind of didn't work. This is working. They've gone to court. A grand jury has ruled that the police officer who shot an unarmed man in the middle of a street in America is not at fault. The second message is to the public, and this is it. You do not have the right to protest or to act against authority. If you attempt this, then we will shoot you. Now, think back to Bundy. What happened? Lots and lots of people from all over the United States converged on the area where the incident happened. Yeah, sure, there were small protests elsewhere in the States. Now look at what's happening in Ferguson. What's happening in Ferguson is people aren't travelling to this place to protest. Not at all. They're protesting wherever they happen to be, New York City, Missouri, wherever. That's a big difference. Now, I would tend to suggest that the racism here is on behalf of the federal government, because this is the federal government's plan. The federal government's plan is that they will take advantage of the innate racism, which undoubtedly there is in American society. They know that people aren't going to ride to the defence of this particular cause. So they've deliberately chosen this incident to push home this point and to create this legal precedent. Because after all, whatever they do to a black guy, legally, they can do to a white guy or a Chinese guy. It's no problem, because the law makes no distinction as regard to race. It doesn't matter that the victim in this case was black. It doesn't matter. The purpose of the federal government has been served, and the purpose of the federal government was to send those messages. Because remember, Obama asked this question of the armed services. He asked a lot of armed service leaders a question, and that question was, will you fire on unarmed US citizens? Those who answered no got booted out or sent for retraining. Those who answered yes probably got promoted. So this is it. I mean, the feds have been preparing for a war against the American public. And this is the last piece of the jigsaw that they needed. They needed this legal approval of shooting an unarmed civilian before they could go ahead. This was what they tried to get at Bundy by the provocation, and it's undoubtedly provocation, that they levelled at people at Bundy and failed to get. At Ferguson, by playing the race card, they've done two things. First of all, they've assured a large reaction and a lot of publicity, and secondly, they've assured that there will be no real kickback. Sure, there's going to be a few riots, but there's going to be no organised action against the police, no organised action against the federal government, and therefore this will be ineffective. In effect, for free, they have got themselves a legal precedent which will allow them a free reign of tyranny and terror over the American populace. And that is my perspective. That is what I think I've got to offer, and that is uncovering the truth behind what the real agenda is with Ferguson. Well, I hope you found this useful and interesting, and if you have, please like, please share, please subscribe. Thanks very much. Bye.